Valcour Marina near Plattsburgh, New York, to enjoy the unusually calm waters of Lake Champlain. It had proven to be a leisurely sail. There had been no air, and their boat had barely moved in over an hour. Even novice sailors like the Bouchards preferred a bit more action than this. What the Bouchards didn't know was that the calm before the storm was more than just an idle expression.
We left anticipating a good overnight sail. The air wasn't with us, and we tried for about 2 hours to get some momentum on the boat. I sent my daughter, Susan, below decks to get some food from the cooler so that we could have a lunch. Gary mentioned to me that the color of the air had changed.
It was warm, and then it was cold, and then it was warm again, and I should have realized right then that what was happening, that a front was starting to move through.
Unperturbed by the changing weather pattern, David Gretkowski and two friends left Burlington Harbor, headed to Valcour Island for lunch.
I grew up on Lake Champlain and have always been around it. Our summers were spent on Lake Champlain, and we always were in the water, either water skiing or canoeing. Lake Champlain itself is a very unpredictable lake. It's used by many people now in many boats, but a lot of people are not too versed in the weather patterns and changes that can occur.
About the time I realized what was going on, the first big gust of wind came up.
It was just like I had lost my entire family. It was one of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had in my life.
David and his friends found themselves running against the wind after the drastic change. Their boat was being rocked against the big waves. They were up for it, having a good time. It didn't last long.
Probably 3/4 of the way over, I spotted something in the water, and we really didn't know what it was. But anyway, we headed off in that direction. At that point, as we got closer and closer, we could see that there had been a sailboat that tipped over. We found out that somebody was missing, and boom, here we are, just thrust in this situation. So immediately, I put on a life jacket and scanned the top of the water, and we didn't see anything, so I dove in. I didn't have any clue where this person was, or did they, and the water was extremely cold. As a matter of fact, when I dove in, I honestly thought about turning around and coming back. At that point, I asked the father where his daughter had last been. She was in the front cabin, the under part of their sailboat, I guess, where they could sleep. And at that point, I said to myself, if she was in that compartment, that maybe she had drowned. So I'm starting to feel a little queasy about this situation that I'm in. I decided that I was going to look under the boat to see what I could see. To my astonishment, I saw a leg hanging there, lacking lifelike movements.
Coming up next, roar with the king of the jungle on safari.
Office Depot helps us where it counts, on the bottom line.
We shopped other stores, but Office Depot had more brands, bigger inventory, and guaranteed low prices.
Taking care of business every day. Taking care of business every way. I've been taking care of business.
You can't beat the savings, and you certainly can't beat the service.
There's no reason to go anywhere else.
It's as simple as that.
Nobody sells more office supplies for less than Office Depot.
Chrysos create this exquisite 18-karat gold and diamond bracelet at such a magical price? Only those who believe in romance and dreams and unicorns will ever know. Chrysos, exclusively at Bailey Banks in Biddle.
All through the holidays, hearts we bake for me.
Mary cherry nougat,
Special recipes,
little wedding cakes,
fresh macaroons,
lucky little nougats.
Christmas trees and bells at our display for the holiday.
Have a pfeffernuss or two,
And an archway in a pear tree.
Ho, ho, home-style holiday cookies from Archway. Ho, 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 ho.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
I try not to think about it.
David Gretkowski had dived into the icy waters of Lake Champlain to try and find the young woman who was missing following the capsizing of her family's pleasure boat.
I didn't say anything to the father at that point, and to let him know what I just had seen. Barbara Bouchard had now drifted a ways away from the boat, and the guys that I was riding with in our boat had gone to pick Mrs. Bouchard up. I decided, here I go. I'm going underneath. Finally, I got to the point where I could reach her leg. I was right at it, but at that point, I had let my life jacket do its job and thrust me up into what I hope is a big air pocket. I shot up along the front of her body, and all of a sudden, wham, we're face to face.
I was very surprised when David Gretkowski showed up. I was just, you know, who are you? And he proceeded to tell me, and then I started to panic.
Her first line, I think, as I recall, was, "Who the hell are you? And what are you doing here?" And I don't really think that she knew the extent of the trouble that she was in.
I didn't know how to get out of there with the dog, and we had just gotten the dog, and I wasn't going to leave the dog in the cabin.
So I grabbed the dog that she had on her shoulder, and I kind of grabbed it right by the back of the neck. And as I told her to take a deep breath and that I'd be kicking and pushing her the whole way and just to keep going no matter what.
He said, you got to go, you know, go down as far as you can and swim out to the side. And I did.
Meanwhile, I've got this dog in my right hand, and the life jacket that I'm wearing now is just holding me up. And I'm losing energy and air and strength, and the closest point for me to air I knew was back up in that air pocket. The jacket did its job again, and here I am, again up in the air pocket by myself. What's going through my head now is that the boat now is in the process of sinking. I actually thought at one point my feet were going to touch the ground. I can't really describe totally for anybody that feeling. It's just it's just very helpless. When you think that maybe the ball game's over for you, you realize you got to get going, get out of there.
David made it to the surface, but his life jacket snagged and pulled him back under. His fingers were too numb from the cold to work the fasteners.
I wound up ripping this life jacket right up over my head, and it came off that way, and I was able to come to the surface, and at that point I was able to climb up onto the boat.
I couldn't believe that anybody would do that. I hope if I'm ever faced with that situation, I can do the same thing, but I can't imagine doing it. I think he's great.
There's darn few people that would do what David Gretkowski did. That's why the man has the Carnegie Medal. That's why he deserves the Carnegie Medal.
I just can't ever, ever express to him or his parents how grateful I am that they gave my daughter her life back. There isn't any way that we can repay him.
The Bouchard family is profoundly aware of the gift David has given them. To them, He personifies the word hero.
I hate that word, I really do. I don't like having it pinned on me. I just like for myself to know that, hey, I kind of did something I can be proud of, but I don't like the word hero.
For his bravery, David was awarded the Carnegie Hero Medal in 1989.
Susan Aley survived against impossible odds thanks to David Gretkowski's courage and fierce determination. Susan and her mother are less keen on sailing now than they once were. However, Gary Bouchard has bought a new boat, and he continues to sail. One of the most extraordinary things about the stories we explore on Heart of Courage is that the acts of heroism are not dependent on friendship or other close ties. Neither David Gretkowski nor Gaetan Fortin had ever met the people they rescued from death. But perhaps they, and all our heroes, are ultimately connected to each other through their refusal to give up on life.